You're listening to Intelligent Medicine, a resource to help you take control of your health. We offer a balanced, objective analysis of all your health, wellness, and aging options, both conventional and alternative. Now you can take your engagement to the next level by joining FullScript. FullScript is my online dispensing platform that only offers curated, professional-grade supplement brands that I know and trust. Never counterfeit or expired, always stored and shipped correctly. Just go to drhoffmanstore.com for more information and to start your free FullScript account. Buying through FullScript offers fast, free shipping, optional refill reminders, a mobile-friendly site. It's safe, secure, and HIPAA compliant and offers world-class support. Just go to drhoffmanstore.com. You'll get access to the supplements and features you need to help you achieve your wellness goals, including my custom targeted protocols that combine the products I recommend to address specific needs, heart health, immune support, and much more. It's all at drhoffmanstore.com. drhoffmanstore.com. Welcome back to today's Intelligent Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ronald Hoffman. Very excited to be able to interview today's guest, who's Dr. Jeffrey Bland, known to many of you who are health practitioners as the godfather of functional medicine, and currently involved in a passion project, which is his new company, Big Bold Health, BBH. Makes a range of products, specifically products derived from Himalayan tartary buckwheat, but also a unique brand of fish oil, which I have adopted because I just, I've been a big fan of fish oil. I've been taking fish oil for, 4 decades. I was sold on the benefits of fish oil early on, but lately I've come to recognize that there are differences in quality, differences in the spectrum of nutrients that fish oil offers. So let's talk a little bit about fish oil, which I consider like kind of the Swiss Army knife of nutritional medicine. So many benefits.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Rod. It's very interesting. The more and more we delve into the science and the physiology of benefits from omega-3 family of fatty acids, and that goes beyond just EPA and DHA, the whole portfolio of those omega-3 fats that are found in certain fish oils, the more we recognize that they have this pleiotropic effect. That word means many different effects in the body. And they're kind of, as you say, Swiss Army knife, because they target so many different organ-specific functions related to inflammation and cell signaling that are associated with healthy outcomes.
Indeed. So now the conventional fish oil, and there's actually a pharmaceutical type of fish oil, which concentrates on one fraction of fish oil. They consider it the business end of fish oil. They start with fish, which has a multiplicity of compounds. We know that eating fish is healthy. The epidemiological studies reveal that fish eaters, it's like they say, you go to the fish store and it says, eat fish, live longer, eat shellfish, love longer. That's usually like displayed on the wall in your local health food store, your local fish store. There's something to it. But what we tend to do sometimes in nutritional medicine is we zero in on one compound that is present in something beneficial like turmeric. And we just focus on, one fraction of that. And we say that's the business end of this compound. We've done that with fish oil. EPA in a purified form, highly distilled, available from your physician by prescription, costs about $379, but don't worry, your insurance will cover it or Medicare will cover it. And that has been shown to be heart healthy, will lower your triglycerides. They've actually approved the claims because it's a pharmaceutical drug. Can't say that. You can't make disease claims about something you buy in a health food store for, a lot less money. Other products incorporate DHA, which is a good thing because DHA seems to have, brain benefits as well. But are we missing out when we buy these highly refined products?
Well, the answer, I believe, is yes. But it also depends on what you're trying to do.
Okay.
If you have a medical condition, hypertriglyceridemia, then you may need the supercharged version to pharmacologically lower your risk. Now, hypertriglyceridemia is not as common as high cholesterol, but it is still a clinically concerning problem. So if you're treating a a disease entity that maybe you need to go to the supercharged portion. But for the majority of us who are at risk because we have poor management of our metabolism, the highly purified form misses a lot of the other ingredients that you need for the right orchestration of your body's physiology. It's a target. It's a bullet rather than buckshot.
Okay. Good analogy. Yep.
So, let me just give a quick little color to this because I think it may sound romantic and folksy, but I think it illustrates the issue. So I'm very fortunate as I've gotten more into this whole omega-3 story, fish oil story, to have met many years ago a owner of a fishing company out of Seattle, Washington that fishes in Alaska, Bering Sea, and Gulf of Alaska. We became good friends and then became business colleagues. And together we then formed a company to build a shoreside plant that would be able to take fish that he's catching with his unique boats, where he's catching his fish on a line and hook and having them processed on board the boat within 15 minutes from a live fish into minus 20-degree freezers on the ship so they don't get any degradation. They never go into the hold of the ship and rush around, sloshing around for days till they come back. And then we built this plant together, the first ever pharmaceutical grade plant of its type in the state of Alaska, with Native Alaska Group on Dutch
Which,
Harbor.
by the way, dovetails with your passion to do boating through the Inside Passage, because that's kind of, that's where you hang out.
That's exactly right. This was like making good on my hobby. It
Right.
became part of my profession. So recently, when I say recently, I mean just before the heavy winter occurred, and it turns out that Dutch Harbor, Alaska has been experiencing a record winter. The winds have been 100 miles an hour continuously, and the temperatures have been minus 50 or lower.
Wow.
And the seas off of the coast of Dutch Harbor, supposedly a protected harbor, but there's no such thing as protection when the conditions are like that, have been 80-foot seas.
Oh, my goodness.
And so it's been just unbelievably torrential up there. Fortunately, when I was up there with my son, it was right before winter hit. It was early December, and we were able to avoid the ravages. But I was able to hang out on a fishing boat, on one of our fishing boats, and really understand the difference between the whole agribusiness approach towards fish oil and the way we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the agribusiness way of fish oil is you catch like a lot of herrings and sardines and big nets, and they sit in trawlers for some time. They start to go back to a plant where the oil is really a byproduct. You want to get the fish protein meal out to make chicken feed. So then those fish are processed. They're pretty smelly and bad by that time. The oil that comes out has to be heavily processed to get them back into a
Deodorized,
palatable
etc.
form.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. And then distilled and so forth and so on. So that's the dominant way that fish oils are produced, to go into capsules.
Mm-hmm.
In our case, what I learned about being on these boats is these fisher guys that are on these boats are catching these fish on board out in this pretty hostile area in Alaska. We're the only group that has what are called RFM and MSC certified. So we're both certified for sustainability and certified from shoreside ecology as being compliant with the environment. And so our fishing guys have to take these fish off the hook one at a time. They have to clean the fish on board. They have to put them in these special racks that go into our freezers. And then they come back frozen and ultimately then into our plant while they're still frozen. And what I found through this whole process is they're principally guys, so like I say men, are really committed to this whole process, this chain of custody, this nature connection to fishing and the wild environment of Alaska. And even
it's
in
a
our
little
plant,
like the most dangerous catch, It's kind of like
it is
a saga of sea peril.
Yeah, there's a lot of that up there, no question. So our plant foreman is a seasoned guy. He started on as a captain on fishing boats, but now he's our operator overseeing our plant. the way that he stewards his colleagues in the plant, I found to be, again, indicative of a different philosophy, a different psychology. They're all part of a team. They're very proud of this quality of the oil. In fact, I did a little video when I went over to the process where the oil is going into the reservoir tank, and there's a little valve there you can open up, and it'll drip out the oil. And I put it in a champagne glass, and I drank it directly out of the.
You did a tasting.
Odorless taste.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not colored, odored, or taste off taste. So I think that there is something about this whole concept of stewardship, this whole concept of engagement, the philosophy that you use to produce something, and I think this preservation of the integrity of of nature. I mean, why does nature go to the degree of difficulty to produce all this complexity? Why doesn't it just make EPA?
Right.
Why does it have all of these other things going on, these pro-resolving mediators and vitamin A and D and astaxanthin and all the other things that you find in a minimally processed oil that you lose when you overly process it? So it's really been, for me, a very great lesson plan about this vertically integrated sense as to how you start with something and how you end up with something and how it gets permuted or for not during the process.
Let's talk a little bit about something called the omega-3 index, because I think for a lot of my patients, that's really been a teachable moment, a wake-up call. We can do a blood test called the omega-3 index, and we can point out to them something really important. And I believe it was you who very likely introduced me to this concept, which is that we can measure in the blood the balance of essential fatty acids within the bloodstream. And what does that tell you about a person's risk for certain diseases?
Yeah, I think I agree with this, was a major breakthrough in making this a little bit more real to people. So, okay, how does that really work in my body? What's really going on? And it turns out that extensive research that's been done over now the last 40 years since Bang and Dierberg discovered the value of these omega-3 oils in humans back in their work in Greenland. What it's been found is you can measure in the blood fairly routinely now the amount of these different types of fats in your blood, the omega-3s, omega-6s, omega-9s. And that leads then to what is called an omega-3 index, which is how much of the omega-3s, the heart-healthy, immune-healthy oils are present versus the other ones. And the data, when it's been compiled across all of these different countries, countries that eat fish and countries that don't eat fish, it turns out that when you get to about 7% of the total fats in your blood that are of the omega-3 family, that the incidence statistically of heart disease and other inflammatory diseases is very, very low in that population. Much, much lower. I mean, like a third lower than, a third of what the other countries that don't have that in their diet would be seeing. And so you can actually measure that fairly simply, and that's called the omega-3 index. When you get below 1 or 2% of these omega-3s in your blood, your omega-3 index is low. Now you're in that very high risk category. It would be like having a high blood cholesterol level, like you had, or a high LDL cholesterol level.
Maybe we should be routinely measuring the omega-3 index along with LDL and HDL and ApoB and all these things that we consider risk factors for cardiovascular disease.
I totally agree with you. And I think the functional medicine provider would be the type of person who is sensitive to that. That's how they've been trained to kind of look at the broader based perspectives as to how these things relate to individual personal risks. So we're not just broad brushing it. We're trying to really go down into the individualization of therapies based upon how your body performs relative to what you're eating. And so I think that this construct that you could do an omega-3 index and kind of trace your relative need for these omega-3s in your diet or in supplement form becomes a really important adjunctive tool.
Let's switch gears and talk a little bit about HTB, Himalayan tartary buckwheat, because that's another of the offerings of Big Bold Health. By the way, bigboldhealth.com/Hoffman. You can use coupon code Hoffman20 for 20% off site-wide. You can get the fish oil, which is called Omega-3 Rejuvenate. Oh, let me backtrack. I got a question for you. I got a couple of bottles here. I've got the Omega-3 Rejuvenate, which is this. And then there's this thing called Skin and Eye Support, which is it's a fish oil variation on the theme. Why is it branded
Yep.
skin and eye support? Or is it unique and different and the different composition? Why target skin and eye?
Yeah, so we know that omega-3 fatty acid intake is very helpful for both skin and eye health. That's been published in many studies. We also know, however, that there is another series of nutrients that are really important for activating or augmenting the value in the skin and eye of the omega-3s, and that is astaxanthin and lutein. And so what we did in the skin and eye formula is that we used natural sources of astaxanthin and lutein to come up to the level that the clinical studies have shown are beneficial, specifically as therapies for vision, tiredness of the eyes, and for hair and skin activities and luster and formation. So the skin and eye is really the omega-3 plus the amounts of the lutein and astaxanthin that are at the clinical levels that have shown support for those tissues.
Okay, folks, at this point, let's pause and allow one of our sponsors an opportunity to share an important message with you. So here it goes. Listen up. You know that feeling. You're exhausted, but your brain just won't quit. You're staring at the ceiling, watching the clock, dreading the morning. Here's something that actually helps. It's called Kyolic Specialty Series Sleep Mushrooms Plus. And it's unlike anything you've tried before. This isn't some chemical sleep aid that leaves you foggy and dragging the next day. This is a clean botanical formula built around certified organic reishi mushrooms grown on real farms, not in a lab, combined with valerian root to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer, L-theanine to quiet that racing mind, and Kyolic Age Garlic Extract, one of the most trusted wellness ingredients available for circulation and stress support. It's vegan, non-GMO, no gluten, no dairy, no artificial anything. Just 2 capsules, 2 hours before bed, and you wake up actually rested, not groggy, not out of it, just refreshed. Kyolic Sleep Mushrooms Plus from Wakanaga. Learn more about this and the entire Kyolic Mushrooms Plus line at kyolic.com. That's KYOLIC.com. Look for Kyolic at natural health stores nationwide and online. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting our sponsors. They're what make intelligent medicine a continuing free resource to you. And now back to today's guest, Dr. Jeffrey Bland. And an additional dividend, from what I understand, is that at least in rodent studies, they did a bunch of rodent studies, you could actually test a lot of compounds to see if they make rats and mice live longer. And you can't do it on humans because it would take, 80, 90, or 100 years to find out. So rats and mice, they live less long, so we can test a lot of compounds relatively quickly. And we tested some things like metformin. Metformin didn't pan out. But curiously enough, astaxanthin seemed to extend the life of male mice, I believe it is, by 20%. What's up with that?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Astaxanthin is a pigment. It has an orange color to it. It is produced by algae. So when sea creatures eat things that eat algae, if it has that kind of algae that produces that pigment, then it's enriched in the tissues. And because it's oil soluble, it gets into their body fats. And so if you then extract without distillation and too much purification, like salmon has astaxanthin in the natural state. So wild
Natural salmon. And it turns out that farm salmon is gray, but they feed it astaxanthin to make the flesh appear like more appealing, more red, like wild salmon. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is an interesting story in its own right, because it turns out that astaxanthin in salmon, when it's in the wild, is a marker for what they're eating. So they're not eating the same thing as astaxanthin is put in a purified chicken food that's given to fish farms.
Right.
That's a different phenomenon.
Yeah.
So, and what we're really speaking to around now is why I started Big Bull Health. My wife said to me, Jeff, come on, I just turned 80. And do you really need
That's
to
hard
do
to believe.
another?
The amount of, how prolific you are at 80 is, there's hope for the rest of us. Yeah.
So she said, do you really need to do this? And I said, well, I really have one line in my career that I would really like to do. And that is, I think that this concept of immune health is so important, because if we look at all the disorders that are associated with disturbed immunity, it's not just infectious disease, but it's dementia, and it's heart disease, and it's diabetes, and it's arthritis, and And so I said, I think maybe I should be looking at what can we do to improve people's immune resilience, their immune defense. And so that became the start of Big Bulls Health about 6 years ago. And then we asked the question, what do we know about natural products that are associated with immune health? And of course, you jump immediately to say, well, we know about vitamin D. Yeah, that's good. We also know about omega-3 fatty acids. Yeah, that's good. We know about vitamin C. Yeah, we know about zinc. But it turns out if we put these in classes, there are 3 classes of nutritionally related substances that have pretty broad bodies of literature supporting their value in not just boosting the immune system, but rejuvenating the immune system. And those are the omega-3 fatty acids with the PRMs, the protein-resolving mediators, the pre and probiotics to form proper gut health so that you get the right messaging to your immune system, because 70% of our immune system is clustered around our gut.
Yes.
And then the third are polyphenols from foods, and that's what led us into Himalayan tartary buckwheat, because it was the highest polyphenol containing food that we could find. So we said, could we combine those 3 things, those 3 pedestals or pillars together as an immune rejuvenation program? So then we did a pilot clinical trial to see if we could change immune aging in humans over 90 days, which we published the results of that trial a year ago. And it was pretty dramatic for us. We were able to show in that study we could lower the rate of immune aging by 47% after 90 days by utilizing this concept that Big Bull Health is pioneering. So now we have jumped off the end of the pier. Now we're finishing up an 850-person double-blind, placebo-controlled randomized trial looking at the effect of Himalayan tartary buckwheat across 1.2 million gene expression patterns in human immune systems, correlated with clinical outcomes of how people look, act, and feel over 90 days. It will be the largest study ever done anywhere in the world on a food's relationship to the immune system, and we'll have that data available in June. So we're full in.
We'll have to have you revisit us then when we release the results of that study. Or you may have to wait for publication, because sometimes these things are embargoed. But I'm anxious to hear about that, because that is a huge undertaking, and kudos for you, because I think a lot of companies, they make claims and they say, this is good. Maybe this was the thing that made the girls in Tahiti have beautiful skin and hair traditionally, but the research sometimes is lacking. I just wanted to ask one other question about the fish oil products. This is actually a listener question. We had a question from a listener who asked about dosage on these products, because she noticed that there's some vitamin A and D. And this is an astute listener who knows that if you take, really high doses of vitamin D and vitamin A, you might get into trouble. So what are we talking about here in terms of dosage, and is it problematic for, say, pregnant women or, some special group?
Well, thank you. That's it. First of all, I want to compliment that listener. That's a very astute question. And so because we use cod liver oil from our Alaskan fishery as one of our sources of omega-3, we are concerned about excessive levels of vitamin A. If you get above 6,000 or 7,000 international units a day, you could potentially be, in some people, into arrest, particularly if the woman is pregnant. So we want to be really mindful of that and have a large safety margin. So what we've done in our omega-3 rejuvenate is we use our wild-caught salmon oil blended with our cod liver oil to get the appropriate adjustment of levels of vitamin A and D, along with the EPA and DHA and protein-resolving mediator. So that's a product, and that's why it has that orangey color, because it brings also the astaxanthin from the salmon with it. So we try to balance that so that a person can take what we recommend is 2 to 4 capsules a day to get the level of EPA and DHA that's in the safe and effective range.
Okay, because I take 1 or 2 a day. I might also take a supplement that has some vitamin D and a little bit of vitamin A, but the margin of safety is very large there, so that we need to be concerned about that. That's good to know. So, finally, you've been very generous with your time. I hope it's raining there in Seattle so that you don't miss going outside, because sunlight is an important nutrient and there's not much of it in Seattle. So maybe you're hunkering down because it's one of those, dark, dim spring days in Seattle. The final question I have for you is, you have a lot of perspective on this movement, and it is a movement, and, it's culminating in this MAHA movement, which kind of embodies the spirit of, let's focus more on diet, lifestyle, nutrition. When you look back on your at least 5 decades of experience in this field, are you encouraged? Are you gratified by the growth that you've seen in this field?
Well, you've asked me several questions there together, so I'll try to
I tend to do
break
that.
them out.
They're long-winded questions.
It's good. So let's first deal with the biggest question. Am I encouraged about the movement? And yes, absolutely. When I think back to, when we began early on in this field, and when I was first giving seminars to health professionals, if I can have 5 people other than my family to seminar, I felt very successful. I mean, the movement has definitely grown up since there. I mean, there are over 150,000 people that have been through the IFM programs over the last 30 years. So I think we're starting to see some traction and stickiness. So that gives me great hope that we are moving in the right direction. Now, how does that interface with the Make America Healthy Again, or MAHA movement? I think conceptually, the MAHA movement is really should be focused on the right things. I think, talking about the ultra-processed food pandemic and the existential crisis that it produces in healthcare is been long overdue. And I believe that thing is really a positive force that could help change agriculture, food supply, and ultimately health of
Regenerate
people.
agriculture and so on, yeah.
Exactly. The difficulty is, and we all know this, is that once you move things into this very complex milieu of how business and politics and economics all interface, you get into competing interests. And I think the politicalization of MAHA has not been actually very good for all of the things that we'd like in a theoretical platform, but I recognize it's the real world. Now, the one thing that has come out of MAHA that I take a great sense of value in and compliment is the reorganization of SNAP now, so that it will no longer pay for ultra-processed foods.
That's a plus.
That also is a interesting mixed issue, because now you have people that have been raised on food deserts, and they're only used to buying stuff from food stores that have ultra-processed foods. And now you've taken that away from them because they can't be reimbursed for it. So what are they going to do? Are they going to travel in a different part of the city and find stores that have more fresh fruits and vegetables and good stuff? Or are they just going to not eat or not be reimbursed? And so I think there's all these socio-political economic issues that I have to be cognizant of. But I think theoretically to get soft drinks off the list, because I think soft drinks were such a bane to children and their children's health. And, about Robert Lustig's work on sugar and the effect on pediatric health. And now we're seeing fatty liver in kids that you never would have thought in my lifetime you'd see fatty liver disease in teenagers. So I think that there are some really positive things, but I think we have to use a lens of a little bit wait and see how this all plays out.
Yeah, once, in this atmosphere of political polarization, it's not even the substance of it. It's evaluated on, where you are in the political spectrum, and that sometimes colors people's impressions of what should be generally acknowledged truths, which is, we need to be eating better, we need to be exercising, we need cleaner water, we need cleaner air, and so on. All these, I think, are verities. But political process, I think, makes people take sides. So, on that note, I think that, very obviously, I think you're being very modest, because I think you've spearheaded a movement that has included, you mentioned some numbers, that has really mobilized tens of thousands at the very least of health professionals who adhere to more or less the principles of functional medicine, and really are kind of a cadre, an active group of people who are influencing the healthcare system to look for more natural solutions that are science-based, who, have clinical skills and also have the sophistication to winnow out what's real and what's hype. I think that that's been also part of your background, because, I don't think you accept everything on face value. You're critical of some of the trends, even within our industry, that, undermine people's confidence in this So, yeah, I mean,
Let me respond just quickly. Thank you.
Sure.
That was, I thought, very, very thoughtful and insightful. So I think that what's encouraging right now is that the HHS, Health and Human Services, has just published recently a call for proposals under this new research $100 million grant project, in which it's asking for proposals that would relate to functional medicine,
wow.
that would demonstrate with proper clinical studies the value proposition and outcome of functional medicine. Now, I would have never thought in my lifetime that would happen at the national governmental level. Now, how these grants or these proposals will be evaluated and how they'll be funded, I'm not sure. But it is demonstrative of the fact that we're at least getting up on the hierarchy of understanding to see that maybe there's something worth evaluating. And secondly, I'm very encouraged because we're talking about credible science, and I'm thoughtful that people like Darius Moshafarian, who's the head of the Buddhist medicine group at Tufts, and a very well-known cardiologist. And, his call recently in JAMA, the Journal of American Medical Association, for looking at food additives and looking at some of the junk that we've thrown in these ultra-processed foods and making intelligent decisions about how those things can inform the body to be under siege and feeling that they're at risk. So there's lots of good things that are happening around this language and this thoughtfulness, but I think that the decisions should be made on good, clear science, on the ability to do unbiased, objective evaluation without having people standing over saying, well, I want your science to prove my hypothesis.
Exactly.
I think we have to be looking at this objectively. What I'm fearful of right now is that science has been kind of used as a club to club people into a specific point of view rather than as a tool for evaluating what is really truth.
Right. Or co-opted by commercial interests because, you can always take some great ideas and you can kind of bastardize them into the commercial arena and put a health halo around certain foods and certain offerings, which ultimately, may just deliver different forms of ultra-processed foods to people.
That's beautifully stated. And that's really the reason we, a little small company, Big Bold Health, made the big gulp and went out for a very large clinical study, 850 people, double-blind control. And, this is no small expense to do. But we feel if we're going to really talk science and we're going to talk veracity, then we have to be willing to step up. And, you take the luck of the draw. Maybe we're not going to get data that looks positive. But I think it's worth making the effort to demonstrate that you have something of value. So you don't lead with disillusioned people with a sense of, they told me something, but it never really happened. And if we want to really create a change in our culture, we have to produce something. It's not just one out of 282 patients that might be valued.
Right.
You have to make it a lot better in terms of outcome.
Absolutely. Okay, so once again, our call to action, bigboldhealth.com/Hoffman for Omega-3 Rejuvenate and the full range of their Himalayan tartary buckwheat products. They've got great shakes. They've got the powders that you can sprinkle on your dessert or add to your smoothies. And they've got the capsules. So you're got a lot of ways to take in that remarkable nutrient. Use coupon code Hoffman20 for 20% off site-wide. And thank you, Jeff Bland, for your work. And thank you for being so generous with your time. I know you're real busy and you need to get back to all the things that you do. You're extremely prolific. Congratulations on your 80th birthday. You're an inspiration to me. So there's hope for me that when I'm 80, I could be as active and productive as you.
Well, I expect to see you cycling in New Zealand at your 80th birthday at least, or maybe it'll be somewhere else in the Himalayas. But
okay. From your mouth to God's ears, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Ron.
I'm Dr. Ronald Hoffman, and this is the Intelligent Medicine Podcast. I want to thank you for listening to the Intelligent Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app, and get new episodes automatically downloaded every weekday. And please give us a rating and review. It truly helps new people discover intelligent medicine. The Intelligent Medicine Podcast is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice, and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they may have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. Finally, please visit drhoffman.com and discover everything Intelligent Medicine has to offer, including frequently updated, unbiased health news and fully vetted product and supplement recommendations. There were many important reasons why I started my FullScript online supplement dispensary. I wanted to offer you the same curated professional-grade supplement brands that I use, the ones I know and trust. I also wanted to ensure that they weren't counterfeit or expired. Recently, I've been hearing more and more about counterfeit or expired products purchased from online retailers. With FullScript, you can be confident your supplements are genuine and they'll arrive with optimal freshness and potency. Also, buying through FullScript offers fast, free shipping, optional refill reminders, and a highly rated mobile app. It's safe, secure, HIPAA-compliant, and offers world-class support. Go to drhoffmanstore.com for more information and to start your free FullScript account. You'll get access to the supplements and features you need to help you achieve your wellness goals, including my custom targeted protocols that combine the products I recommend to address specific needs: heart health, immune support, and much more. To get started, just go to drhoffmanstore.com, drhoffmanstore.com.